And this is why what the LPMC is doing is so vitally important, because the corporate press is constantly issuing us new enemies. We got to hate the Soviets, then we got to hate the Muslims, then we got to hate the rich, then we got to hate the Russians, and now we got to hate, insert whatever group is next. But LPMC and the Libertarian Party in general is actually giving people a principled divide in society. People who achieve their ends peacefully through trade, marketing, voluntary exchanges, mutually beneficial exchanges, versus the corporate press, who is constantly dividing us, male versus female, black versus white, and all this other arbitrary nonsense. And it's so deadly in the long run. I mean, if you think of what almost happened with Zelensky some weeks ago, a Ukrainian defense missile hit Poland and killed 2 civilians. Zelensky comes out and says, look, Russia bombed Poland, who's a NATO member. Now, for those of you who don't know, NATO's first declaration of war, 52 years after its existence, was in Afghanistan. And after 20 years, the Taliban took over in 11 days. This is the group that wants to make a potential war with Russia over Donetsk and Luhansk, and possibly China over Taiwan. This is how deadly it's getting. And only the LPMC, only the Libertarian parties coming out and saying, you don't have to completely give up your identity to join us. You could be on the right. You can say, I care about family and civilization, and war and mass murder conflicts are the most deadly to civilization and families. If you're on the left, you care about justice and the downtrodden and equality and the dignity of man. Well, then obviously you can't support these mass murder campaigns, which between the world wars and the Cold Wars kill the most vulnerable people in society. Not the wealthy, not the politicians. Of course, it's never the people are pulling the politicians into war and the politicians are saying, please, no, let's have peace. Governments are here to create peace. It's always the opposite. The governments lie the population into wars because they have these arbitrary divides. But the Libertarian Party's changing that with the takeover. No longer are people going to fall for the black versus white, America versus Russia, Muslim versus Christian divide. It's going to be based on violence versus voluntarism, peace versus violence. And that's why I think people should donate to this campaign, and why I'm so excited for Project Decentralization. And it's like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert, like their big stance against this is there has not been an audit of where this money's going, regardless that they're like funding a potential third world war. If you look at the First World War that started over Serbia, it was Russia and Austria going to war over Serbia. Or the Second World War, where Poland was the prize in Danzig, and Germany and Britain went to war over an area in Danzig. This is almost what all these wars are about. It's this small area where people are fighting over influence, and that's where the war is declared. Or actually, the first war, you could say, England declared war against Germany because they invaded Belgium. So this, again, it's all these proxy wars that start very small and get so out of hand so quick that no one's able to appreciate it. And they act like the divide is, well, there's everyone in Ukraine is dead or everyone in Ukraine lives. The reality is, who does the regime in Kiev answer to? Is it going to be Klaus Schwab and Joe Biden, or is it going to be Putin? Or will they be a little more neutral? When it comes to, well, we have to defend Zelensky because he's on the side of democracy. What do we have? I've almost forgotten everything that Zelensky's done when it comes to nationalizing television services and the press. He has outlawed competing political parties and suspended elections. He has instituted slavery, a word called conscription or the draft, for all men ages 18 to 60. And then, of course, the Poland lie that I mentioned previously. He's confiscated property from the Russian Orthodox Church and tons of peaceful clerics who are advocating principles like thou shalt not murder and thou shalt not steal. So Zelensky is no friend of democracy or freedom or anything else. So this is what people need to know, that they're not on the side of the terrific heroes against the pure evil villains. What we have, as we always have with governments, is it's two gangs fighting over a territory. So the question is, which is going to be a less deadly result, which is going to initiate less violence, which is going to be more uncivilized, which is going to be less just and less inequitable for people on all sides of the spectrum. And the fact that Blinken and Lavrov haven't negotiated this is just so criminal. If we look at every big empire, even if you're like, I really don't care if tons of people die in war. War is like really victorious and kind of cool. Even if you have that standpoint, you have to appreciate the history of the Austro-Hungarian Empire falling because of war, the Japanese expansive empire falling because of war, the German Empire, the British Empire, the French Empire. All these empires get very expansive. And the Soviet Empire going into Afghanistan for 10 years, a deliberate move by Zbigniew Brzezinski to bleed them dry. So, it's so vitally important that there's no way you can approach this without seeing that it's absolutely detrimental to those of us who believe in peace, justice, and civility. That's why supporting the LPMC and Project Decentralized Revolution is so important.